Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome inside The Lock Shop once again. Dusty and Huss with you, getting you ready for the Niners and the Seahawks tonight. Huge game for the Seattle Seahawks. And, of course, it's all brought to you by our wonderful partners over at Coolbet. If you do not yet have an account at Coolbet, I don't know how you haven't signed up just yet with the amount that we push these guys and talk about how great they are. Use the code LOCKSHOP when you sign up, and they will take care of you. $200, up to $200, 100% deposit bonus on your initial deposit. And we got a football game to talk about tonight. Huss, how you doing, buddy?
We certainly do. And, I guess I'm looking a little clearer right now. I don't know. For a minute, it looked like I was using a
Looks like your Winnipeg internet's kind of going in and out right now.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like using a baked potato for a camera here. Right
Won't be a long episode today anyway. We got the one game to set up.
I still can't get over the fact that my Wi-Fi in Doha was better than my Ethernet here in the Peg. I won't out the carrier here right now, but it is an issue. But yeah, we had a good game tonight, and we do have another special hockey lock shop partner parlay. Looking for a little redemption from Tuesday night, but we'll get to that. But yeah, man, this is a great – listen, we've had some ups and downs with some of these primetime matchups so far this year. I'm looking forward to this one tonight. I mean, I've been big on the Niners all year long. I have them to some nice futures to win the NFC, and I got to tell you, after the way that they absolutely thrashed the Buccaneers last week, I'm feeling pretty good about that. I really do think, and interesting are your thoughts on this. When I look at San Francisco, assuming they get Deebo Samuel back for the playoffs, sucks for fantasy players. He's going to be out for what looks like the next 3 weeks, right when you need him the most. And this Brock Purdy can stay healthy because, man, he looked good. I really do think that they are the biggest threat to the San Francisco 49ers. Listen, Dallas is good. Minnesota has won a ton of games. They've not fared well against good teams so far this season, getting absolutely smashed by the Eagles and the Cowboys so far. But when I look at this Niner team, I think they are the biggest threat to the Philadelphia Eagles right now for who comes out of the NFC and plays in the big game.
Yeah, that's I guess I need to see more from Purdy. You know, he started one game, he's played in a game and a half so far, and it's looked good for a guy who's Mr. Irrelevant for sure. Dallas is a pretty good football team, though. You know, I agree. Philly's the one that has to be threatened by these teams. Dallas's defense is great. The Niners' defense is great. I think I'd have to side with Dak and Tony Pollard and Zeke over Purdy and CMC. But you're right. If Purdy continues to play well, buddy, I think it's definitely a conversation to have. Definitely a conversation to have.
Listen, I'll say this. And I mean, I mentioned Purdy just because, hey, the quarterback's so important. But to be honest with you, I think the quarterback position in San Francisco is less important than any other spot maybe in the NFL right now. This team wins on the back of its defense. I'll be talking about that in the Coolbet Daily Pick later on. Make sure you're subscribed to Coolbet Canada on all their socials. Jimmy Garoppolo threw the football 8 times last year in the NFC Championship game. I mean, this team...
You're not wrong. That's true.
Is built, is on the backs of that defense right now, and this defense is playing lights out.
It's phenomenal.
They got absolutely torched by my guy, Mahomes, 7 weeks ago. They went into San Francisco and lit him up for 44. Since then, Dusty, the Niners have not given up more than 17 points, and you know, at times it's almost been garbage time when some points have been going in. I mean, that performance last week against Tampa was, made me happy because they were on the best bets. But I think maybe that bet, going in with Brock Purdy, who knew what we were going to get from the quarterback position? One thing you can count on is the Niners defense. That was the basis for that pick. Obviously, they ran away with it. I really think that San Francisco is getting a lot of momentum right now. And whether it's Purdy, whether it's Jimmy G, obviously, Trey Lance isn't in the mix right now. I think that this defense makes them a really tough out anywhere, but especially come playoff time. And I can't wait to see. I don't know. I am still somewhat skeptical on the Philadelphia Eagles so far. I don't know why, what more I need to see. But it's going to be to beat some better teams right now. They've got the games against Dallas coming up. Those will be really interesting. But as far as this one tonight, Seattle's a great story. I don't know how you feel about the Seahawks right now. I think that, you know, it's just about midnight for what was a great Cinderella story so far this season. And to me, the big boys are flexing right now, and the San Francisco 49ers in that division and in the NFC are certainly one of the big boys.
The one thing that you could look at when you evaluate, and we'll get to this game in just a second, when you evaluate the Cowboys, the Niners, and the Eagles, and why you might doubt the Eagles a little bit, it's because they don't have the defense of the Cowboys or the Niners, right? They've got a phenomenal offense, and their defense isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not the Niners defense, and it's not the Cowboys defense, which is something that they'll have to get through if they're going to get to the Super Bowl this year. As for this game tonight, Huss, I think that's what we're both on San Francisco -3 here. And for me, it's Seahawks have fallen off a little bit in a couple of different areas. They've won just one of their last 4. Defensively, they're getting gouged on the ground right now. Like last week, I think twice in these last 4 games, teams have ran the ball more than 40 times against the Seahawks. And they're not running the ball 40 times when it's not working. They're running the ball 40 times because it is working. You let Carolina run the ball down your throat at home last week, and that's without an elite running back. I mean, and that's with Sam Darnold at quarterback, who you don't have to worry about really throwing the ball, and they still just ran the ball down your throat with Foreman and Chuba Hubbard. So I think that's a major issue with Seattle right now. I had Ian Rappaport on my radio show this morning, and I said, what's up with Seattle? Like, what happened here? And he said that Geno Smith's decision-making has gone south lately. He's got 4 interceptions in his last 3 games. You see, I've got a Geno INT on the card tonight at -134. Even prior to this slide, when he was playing well, they couldn't score against the Niners, and he threw an interception in that game against the Niners. So, home game for the Seahawks. It's a huge game for the Seahawks. Kenneth Walker is back for the Seahawks. So, I mean, if you want to make a case for the Seahawks at 3.5 or 4 or something, maybe. But I think the Niners -3 with the way their defense has been playing, and you laid it out a little bit earlier, in their last 6 games, they've allowed 64 total points. And they've won 6 in a row. And I was listening to a podcast earlier today on the way home from the radio station. And they made a great point here. In the last 12 years, only 3 teams in the last dozen years have gone on a run like the Niners defense is on right now, allowing less than 17 points in 6 consecutive weeks. 2 of those teams were the Patriots and some pretty good Patriots teams. So that's the level of defense that the Niners are at right now, which is why I'm on Seattle under 20.5 and San Fran -3 tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Niners at -3. I have a hard time betting against them in almost any situation right now. And, the number, we got in at a good time because it was 3.5 and it had been flipping basically between 3 and 3.5 right now. I wouldn't feel bad about 3.5 either. I mean, I think, listen, I like them to win by a touchdown, to be perfectly honest with you as well. And I know you're going with the under 20.5. I mean, I went with the more traditional. I usually just pick the totals as they're given. But I am going to get into a side for the Cool Bet Daily Pick a little later on. I bet you can guess which one it is. But the under 43 right now. Listen, the one thing I'll say about this is Seattle is not an easy place for teams to go in and run up the score. I mean, there have been a few sort of wild games. We saw the Raiders put up 40 a couple weeks ago against Seattle. But I'm not necessarily thinking that we will see another 30-plus performance like the Niners had last week against Tampa. I just really think that the defense of the Niners is going to be the dominant unit on the field today. So I'm going to take the under 43. I really like San Francisco -3. But to me, leaning on the under is the total is the only way to go. And as you've put up right there, 20.5 for Seattle on the under. They haven't gone, as I said, 6 games, 17 or less. If you do want to get maybe a little aggressive for a better number, you can get plus money. It's plus 103 at 19.5 right now. And at 19, let me just get that up again. It is totals for the Niners, plus 112. So I frankly think there's great value in all those numbers right now. Minus 135 on the 20.5 and just straight up 20 is minus 112 right now.
Yeah, see, the Seahawks, I was a little scared by this 43, mostly because, and I know just one game with Purdy, but the Niners have scored at least 33 points in 3 of their last 4. Now, the Seahawks defense, I think what could end up happening here and why I would lean the under if I wasn't going to go with the Seahawks under 20.5 here, I'd probably lean the under because I think the Niners can dictate the pace of this game on the ground. I think it's that simple. I mean, if they want to just run the ball 40 times tonight, they can run the ball 40 times tonight. And on the other side of it, the Seahawks offense, I guess you'd say, has to have been pretty efficient so far because they're one of like the bottom 6 or 7 teams in the league in the amount of plays they run per game. Their game pace is a little bit slower than some other places. So when you combine the Seahawks' slow game pace with the Niners' ability to maybe just run the ball tonight, I think it might slow the game down a little bit. Mix in the Niners' outstanding defense, and I think that's how I would have come to the conclusion on a lean under the 43.
Yeah, with you on that. As I said, you can check out the particular team totals. The Niners team total, for what it's worth, is 23. Is basically the number evil on each side. Over -115, under -111. And I was just thinking I could see sort of like a 23-10 number. Yep. You notice I'm using 23 and not 24. That would imply a few field goals because it's a primetime game. And we're looking to continue it. Hey, it was no sweat. As disappointing as the Kyler Murray incident was at the start of the game on Monday, and there was an early missed field goal. The field goal prop cashed, I think, 3 minutes into the second half right now. We've had a few just, no sweat operations on that bet. So it's almost an auto bet right now in the lock shop until it loses. And I'm going to go to McCaffrey. Considering that Purdy's been banged up, we'll see whether they try to, make his life a little bit easier by leaning on some of their running backs, and certainly Christian McCaffrey's at the top of that list. The rushing prop is around 79.5. I feel better about the receiving yards prop. If you're looking for an over on one side or the other on McCaffrey, I just could see, he's so dangerous getting the ball out in the flat. And the great thing about the total on this one is, this could literally go over in 2 passes to him. He breaks 1 tackle and bang, he adds another 15 yards to the total. So over 37 receiving yards for McCaffrey. It's going to be my player prop today. And as I said, death taxes and over 3.5 field goals in prime time. We're taking that. It's plus 115 on the books right now, still at plus money.
And I had mentioned one of my props earlier, Geno Smith interception, -134 tonight. He's thrown 3 or 4 in his last 3 games, 2 in his last game. Maybe he'll be a little bit more careful with the ball, but at the same time, they're going to be in a spot here where they may have to be aggressive at times. And his decision-making has been lacking a little bit. Also threw an interception against the Niners earlier in the season. And look at this Niners defense. I think you're going to have to like them to turn the ball over a couple of times. And then the other one, it's a little chalky from a touchdown perspective. I also don't mind Kenneth Walker for a touchdown tonight if the Seahawks are going to get one, and they should probably get 1 or maybe 2. I do like Kenneth Walker for a touchdown tonight. That's plus money. I just feel like this Christian McCaffrey number, especially with Debo out, should be like -160, -165. The fact that we're getting Christian McCaffrey touchdown, anytime touchdown at -125, it's too juicy not to throw on this card because -150 for sure. -125, I saw it today. I said, well, that's too good. I'm going to have to throw that on there because he's going to be heavily involved tonight. And I also don't hate George Kittle over 38.5 receiving yards. Debo's out. If Seattle decides that they've got to focus on shutting down this run and not have teams run all over them again, could be some short area passes here for George Kittle. He's been under 30 in 3 straight games. So if you believe in he's due for a good one, that would fit the bill here as well tonight. So if you want another little player prop, George Kittle over 38.5 isn't the end of the world tonight either.
Kittle, man, I'm staying away from tight ends, period. The tight ends, if they're not named Kelsey, I'm staying away so far this year for the 2022 season.
Seattle's 27th against tight ends this year. So there's a little bit more of a reason maybe here. But you're right on tight ends. I've been bitching about it on fantasy all year. It's ridiculous. The tight end position is a wasteland. So,
hey, let me hit you with this prop before we move on to the hockey partner parlay tonight. Talked a lot about McCaffrey, and I said his rushing total is over 79.5. The receiving yards, which I'm on, is over 37.5. Kenneth Walker's rushing total, 49.5. Now, Rashad White did get 56 yards on 13 carries last week. Although, if I recall correctly, a number of those were when the game was 35-0, and basically they'd call the dogs off a little bit. Can Kenneth Walker, and this will be important for some fantasy players that are forced into starting him in a playoff game against the Niners, can Walker get 50 yards? I'm not sure he can.
Yeah. I had a Seahawks fan slide into my DMs today and say, Dusty, Kenneth Walker's the player prop you want to be on tonight, because this is the first game he's got to play since one of his very good friends was shot and killed in that Virginia campus shooting, and he's got him on his cleats tonight. If you go to the Seahawks Twitter account right now, there's a very emotional piece with Kenneth Walker holding up his cleats for tonight with his buddy's face on it. And so, I mean, if you believe in having a little bit extra oomph for your buddy tonight, I'd probably stay away from the unders on Kenneth Walker. With that being said, Niners defense doesn't give a shit about any of that. So we'll see. But there's a little bit of motivation there. It was a Seahawks fan that brought to my attention. So I went and watched the video. Pretty emotional. This was like one of his best buddies who was killed in that shooting. So, and this is the first time he's been on the field since he passed away, so might be some motivation there tonight.
Well, I was going to say, maybe out of respect for the departed, they could have waited for the tribute to next week against the Chiefs at Arrowhead, who I'm sure will probably allow a few more yards on the ground.
They'll allow a few more points. That's true.
Right now.
You're right. Yeah.
But listen, I mean, that's horrible. And sometimes we do see guys come up with massive performances. All that being said, he could not have a worse unit to go against tonight.
Tough matchup.
If he's looking to have a big game than the Niners do. I've stayed away from it. It's just an interesting number. We talk so much about the guys on the team we like to win. What about the other side? Again, rushing yards, receiving, all that stuff. Geno Smith props, it's all there at CoolBet as well, in addition to our selections tonight in the Lock Shop.
Yeah, we've got a NHL partner parlay going back at it with the Leafs, the Oilers, and the Winnipeg Jets tonight. I can speak on it from an Oilers perspective. I mean, they're coming off just a bare butt spanking of the Nashville Predators. The top line combined for 13 points. Now they come home. They get a St. Louis team also coming off a victory against the Nashville Predators. But St. Louis, now they shut out the Oilers earlier in the year, but St. Louis allows the most goals in their division. They're bottom 5 in the conference in goals against as well. So I feel not bad about the Oilers tonight. Then the Oilers get the Ducks on Saturday. They should pop them for 5 or 6 goals, I would think. But I'm pretty confident in the Oilers tonight against the St. Louis Blues, so I have no problem backing that on a parlay here.
Well, as I owned it yesterday in the daily pick, I basically feel that I personally jinxed the Jets by making them the daily pick against Vegas on Tuesday in the Lock Shop. It's never a good idea to bet on your favorite team, folks. I mean, you can do that, but just don't give it out publicly, because the Leafs romped, Oilers got their win, and the Jets had a wild back and forth game that kind of coincided with Connor Hellebuck's one not so good game of the season and ended up losing 6-5. The one thing I'll say about St. Louis, Binnington is coming off a shutout. He's sucked this year. He's got called out by his coach, and they've been the streakiest team in the league. It'll be very interesting to see how they respond coming off of that shutout win against the Preds earlier this week. And the Preds are here in Winnipeg. They lost to St. Louis. They lost to Edmonton. They have been in a bit of a rut, but the Jets have lost twice in a row for the first time all season. That being said, they need to salvage something out of this homestand. I know Rick Bowness will have them ready to go. Do like the Jets tonight. And maybe last time it was the Leafs were playing Anaheim. Jake's pick, Leafs tonight in New York.
This is a tough one.
Although they're still laying -125. I mean, they've just simply been winning every game these days. Every night. So it's up in the exclusives right now at +415. Jets, Leafs, and Oilers to win. The Lock Shop coming together, hopefully for a perfect night. Jump on it if you want to ride.
super episode tomorrow with the 3 games on Saturday. We're going to combine both our Friday and Saturday episodes into a huge episode on Friday. We'll give you your best bets. We'll get you your partner parlay. We'll give you our other parlays as well. Allows us to include those 3 games on Saturday in some of our picks. And I really want to talk about the Dolphins-Bills game. Bills are a 7-point favorite at home against a Dolphins team that's going to have to go into the cold. We know the Dolphins are great at home. But the cold might be a little bit of a different story. So we've got a lot to get to on tomorrow's episode, buddy.
I cannot wait for it. Obviously, fantasy players are going to be nervously watching all these matchups, including a number tonight that will be fantasy relevant. But for the best bets, we've got a triple header on Saturday, full slate Sunday, and another Monday nighter, and we'll be all over it tomorrow in the Lock Shop.
We'll talk to you then.